Hi, I'm Derek and welcome back to Fun Scale Models. A while back I did a build video series on this airplane. It's a Park Flyer P-40C Tomahawk. Now the model features some unique things about it. First, it's available as a short kit through Manzano Laser Works. Their parts are laser cut and it's a really nice fit and overall great quality and a great way to start this model. The model plans and the tissue templates are available through modelaviation.com as a free download. There you can print the plans if you want to, as well as the templates to print on the tissue to make this particular paint scheme. Another feature the airplane has is this 3D printed spinner and power pack available through Rabid Models. When I was doing the build series, I made plug-in landing gear, as you can see them here. These are foam tires with piano wire landing gear that's wrapped in tape. Overall, it gives a pretty decent effect to represent the full-size airplane, but I wanted something a little bit more scale if it was possible without adding any significant weight. Working with Rabid Models, they created not only 3D printed wheels, but strut covers, and this video will show you how to finish those products. Before we begin construction of the 3D printed parts, let's see what sort of materials we need to create the struts. The first is 1/16 piano wire, or .062. All of the metal items I've picked up from K&S. The next is 3/32 round tubing made from brass. And after that, it's 1/8 square tubing, also from brass. This is the last bit of tubing that's needed. This is 5/32, and it also is square. This is what gets glued into the wing or the landing gear pods, while the rest of the brass parts telescope into each other, like so. In addition to the materials, you'll need some tools to complete this. Some of the basic tools are a ruler, pen and or a pencil, a couple of different sizes of pliers as needed, various sanding blocks and grits. You might also need a file, both large and small. We have both round and square here. A pin vise or a small 1/16 inch diameter drill bit, some putty. You may also want to have a small tubing cutter, Dremel with a cut-out disc bit. And then something else I'll be showing is UV resin. And this is the black light that actually creates the curing of the resin. Let's look at the parts themselves. So you can see here we have the tires, and these have a bit of flexibleness to them. And the hubs come into parts. These will be glued together. For the struts, on the P40, which we'll be doing as our example, they come in 2 halves. These will be glued together, like these right here, and then I'll be showing you how to finish them. Because we're doing the P40 as our example, let's take a look at a detail that can actually be downloaded off of the Rabid Models website. This is a detail of the strut and the landing gear instruction on how to bend the actual strut. We have the outline here on as a template, as well as how the landing gear get mounted. Also shown is the various options that are available. So you can do a smooth hub, which is this here. You can do a mag, as well as you can get your tires with vertical treads, cross treads, or slicks. For the one that we're doing, these are the vertical tread. All right, so let's go ahead and bend our strut. I'm going to go slightly longer just in case I need to make an adjustment or so, and then we'll trim that off later. So mark the point of our bend. Make sure that's 90. And then we'll go ahead and mark where our bend is on the upper part of the strut. This bend is for of course, the wing dihedral. There's not much on this. Gone a little over, so I'll bring it back. Yeah, it looks good. And cut it off right here. This dashed area is just an aid for when you're bending the wire itself. I'll go ahead and I'll use the Dremel and the cutoff tool to trim this off. Once you've let this cooled off, because it does get a little bit warm when you've got it, when you're using the cutting edge, go ahead and use either a file or some sandpaper just to smooth out the surface. There. Now we have two matching struts. So now that we have our landing gear struts bent to shape, let's start taking a look at the hubs. You can see the hubs, like I mentioned, come in two halves here. In preparation, I like to just give the back a little bit of sanding. They also come with about 3/64 of a hole drilled through it already, or printed through it, so you're going to have to go ahead and drill this out. I like to use a pin vise. This is actually a 5/64 bit, which is just slightly over 1/16. Go ahead and give it a sand. As you can see, it slides on and no real slop. We'll go ahead and do the same for the other items. So now we have all four halves of the hubs drilled out as needed. One half of the strut also has a hole in it for the strut that passes, the wire strut passes through. So I've used the same drill bit and drilled that out. One thing that you may need to check is just make sure that there is no printing webs left in the actual strut. Getting that cleaned out makes the wire sit in there much better. So let's go ahead and test it out here. We have our wire, fits in like that, and this will go over the top. You want to check the fit, make sure that they can close. Now, one thing that Rabid Models does is they print it just a little bit long, just in case you have any variation in your model. So you'll want to go ahead and match it up to the plans. So we're going to want to trim about right here, and you can very easily do so with an X-Acto knife. So we now have our struts cut to length. Let's go ahead and test fit the wire to them. And it fits very, very well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use CA to glue the wire and the strut halves together. Go ahead and we'll let that dry into the other side. We have both the struts all set to go here. Now there's a couple different ways you can finish them. You can simply just paint them as is. You can also lightly sand them with a sanding block. And it's really the reason is to get the print layers off of them. I'm going to do a bit of both. I'm going to use some sanding, but I'm also going to use some filler. So I'll go ahead and I'll do that now. While we're waiting for the putty to dry on the struts, let's go ahead and start prepping and working on the hubs. So I've given these a light sanding already, and they look actually really good raw like this. You could paint them if you wanted to. But if you wanted to smooth out the surface even further, you can use UV resin. This is something I just picked up online. You paint it on, I'm just using a really inexpensive paintbrush here, and then you use a UV light on it for about 3 to 5 minutes or until it tacks and cures up. And it creates a nice smooth surface. You can put 1 to 2 coats on to get a really nice finish, and it doesn't add a lot of weight. So let's go ahead and do that now. Nothing fancy, just go ahead and coat it on. Try not to get any bubbles if possible. Okay. So let's go ahead and now cure it using the UV light. So you can see there's a purplish color to it. And I like to hold it right over and kind of see where it's sort of glowing on there. I like to hold it right over the resin area itself. Go ahead and keep this light on it for about 3 to 5 minutes. So the resin has cured, and I wanted to show the difference between sanding and sanding with the resin. This hub is a sanded hub. Looks actually very good as is and be ready for painting. However, this is the hub with a couple of light coats of UV resin, 2 to be exact. I think it helps to smooth it out even that much more, and it's now ready for paint. Go ahead and do the rest of the hubs as well. So now that the putty is dry, I went ahead and sanded down most of it off of the one strut here. I'm going to go ahead and do it on the other one. I'm just using a medium grit sandpaper. This is probably 220. And just gently sort of sanding all the way except for where the low spots are. I'll go ahead and continue to do this until both are ready. So we have both struts now sanded and filled with the putty. We'll go ahead and we'll apply the UV resin to it, just the same as we did the hubs. I'm only doing one side at a time here. Because it's easier to do the UV light. The resin is also sort of self-leveling. We'll go ahead and we'll hit that with the UV light and harden up the resin. So the struts have been covered in the UV resin and it's dried now. I'm going to go ahead and start detailing these up a little bit. First by painting the actual bare strut area silver colored, make it resemble the full size. For that, I'm just going to use a silver marker. Next I'll be painting the strut. I'm going to use Tamiya's light gray. So we've painted and added just a few details to the struts themselves, a little bit of a marker and some markered clear tape. Just helps dress it up a little bit. Now we'll go ahead and we'll start the assembly of the struts on the wheels. Go ahead and we're adding a small washer here. May not be necessarily for your particular build, but I'm adding it on mine just as an added spacer. I've got the hub set in the strut, and I'm going to go ahead and use some CA to attach it. We'll let that dry and put it on the axle. So now that it's dried, we've attached the hub to the axle. We'll go ahead and add the other half of the hub, and I'll drop a bit of glue around that and we'll attach that to the rest of the hub. You do want to make sure that you're looking through and the cutout items align up. Now that that is dry, we're going to go ahead and add the cap. And this is basically the bottom washer for an easy connector. That's going to go over the axle there to keep the tire and the wheel on the axle. We'll go ahead and we'll do that. And there we go. We have attached the plastic washer to the hub, actually to the axle. And the item is ready to have the final little bits of brass tubing adding up on the top here, and we can mount it on the airplane. Before we add on the 3/32 round brass tubing onto the strut wire, we need to add one of these. This is another one of the retainers for easy connectors. This is the metal one. Once we've added that, then you can go ahead and slide on the brass tubing. You can see I've done that here. You can use JB Weld or even CA works fine in just holding the brass tubing to the wire itself. So as you can see, it's not a very difficult thing to do to add those 3D printed parts to your model, but I do think you'll agree they really do dress it up. Thank you, Rabid, for offering this for not only the P40, but the P63, the P38, the Dornier, and the Maki. Please like and subscribe and let us know in the comments if you'd like to see any other topics for Park Flyers. Take care.